This Feast of the Ascension is really difficult sometimes because I don't know where I fit in the story. I'm not there to see the Lord ascend. I'm not there to really be in the upper room with the disciples before that to worry what's going to happen to us. So I'm not quite sure where I fit in this story. Maybe it is good to remember the feeling and the experience of those disciples to know where we fit in the story. Now, the disciples, right after Christ is crucified, and he has already shown himself a few times to some after his resurrection. So they are getting comfortable, or at least trying to deal with the fact that Christ is risen. He did not just die, but rose from the dead. And now they are beginning to think perhaps he will stay with us and there'll be a new preaching. Until this happens. They have already been shattered once, for all that they thought he promised didn't happen. For they thought he would establish a kingdom. Instead, he's arrested, he's tortured, he's crucified, and labeled a criminal. But now he is risen. Maybe something new will happen, only to find out, no, he is leaving them, and this time for good. He's saying, I'm going to send the Spirit to dwell among you. Now just you go out, and you do what I did. And they are alone. Now they do not yet have the Pentecost event, the Spirit, so they don't feel ready to go out. They feel they're, a little off-balanced, a little in between. And I think that's where we are. Some of us are really in that in-between time in our lives. We're a little bit not there and a little bit not here. We're in between those moments. Now that happens to all of us at different times. And maybe if I gave you some ideas, you'll see how our lives are like those of those disciples, in between the ascension and the descent, the Pentecost, the gift of the Spirit. That can happen when you and I experience the death of someone who is very close to us. We suddenly feel that great emptiness, even that sense of loneliness, that someone we have loved, someone who has shared life with us, is gone. And while we know the hope of resurrection, we still feel the loss because I'm in between. I know the loss, and I don't feel I have a future. I know what was the past, and I don't feel there's much ahead. I'm in between. I feel off-balanced. Or maybe it's that experience of leaving home for the first time. All kinds of reasons we may leave our homes for the first time. Maybe it is to go off to school. Maybe it is for us to find that new first job and we move away from what our neighborhoods were, where we grew up, to go and seek the job that we found and were given. Maybe it is that I'm going to move because I need a new place to live and I'm going to be moving to a new city or just to a new part of the city. But with any of those, what I'm losing is that sense of familiarity. I knew this place. I knew those people. Now I'm going to go to a new job, a new school, a new neighborhood. I don't know those people. I'm not familiar with that place. There is suddenly about me a sense of insecurity. There may be excitement of the newness, but there's a little bit of an insecurity. And so I might feel even a little homesick. I may even, in the extreme cases, want to turn around and go back and say, this was a bad idea. I'm in between what I knew and what I will discover. I'm in between what I was familiar with to something that is not yet fitting and feeling quite right. Maybe it is another way I'm in between. Maybe I've lost my job. I lost that position that I had, the title I bore, or maybe just that job I was feeling good about. I don't have that job anymore. And so now suddenly I don't have the new job yet. I don't have a new position. And I'm feeling, in between. It can cause me to wonder whether I'll ever get a job, whether I'm good enough to get a job, whether I'm worthy to get a job, all kinds of questions. I'm in between what I had now to what I've lost. I don't have something I can hold on to. I only have the emptiness of what I had. That could create in me that in-between time. Or maybe it is, and I think this is the more difficult one, when I have a brokenness in relationship. Or maybe it's a relationship that has ended tragically because of a divorce. But it could also be a relationship that has ended because someone has just walked away from that relationship. We had been friends for a long time. Maybe a misunderstanding, maybe something else. But it has ended. They're no longer in my life. It can be even an estrangement I have from someone in the family. A family member, brother, sister, a parent, or tragically a son or daughter. They have done something, or they have in their lifestyle changed something. Maybe they're in addiction. Maybe they're wrapped up in some kind of trouble. Maybe they're even in jail. And so I'm in between. I had this thing, but now it's broken, it's smashed, it's gone. And I have nothing to put the pieces back together again. I feel that in-betweenness. You see, I think that's the same thing that those disciples were feeling between the Ascension and the Pentecost. They were feeling that they were in between. They were caught off balance. They were caught without a security. They were caught without knowing whether they should embrace the future or run from it. So what do? And this is where I think the lesson is good for us. It can tell us, what did those disciples do? What did they do before the Pentecost event? What did they do right after the Ascension, when they felt the loss but didn't know the newness of the Spirit? When they understood what was taken but not what was left, what was given? So what did they do? And I'm going to give you three things. The first is they gathered together and stayed together in prayer. That's so important. Often when we are hurt, when I'm in between, whether it's the loss or the brokenness or something taken away, I don't come to church. I don't pray very well. I don't want to be with people. For whatever reason, I feel unworthy, unwelcomed, or I just feel distant. Maybe I'm even angry at God for the in-betweenness. But this is where I belong. I need to gather in prayer. I find strength from other people. You look around, a lot of others are in between all those different things. They haven't fully grasped the new, and they're living with the old. They may not fully be feeling healed, and they may know a lot of brokenness. There's a lot of strength when I look around and say, there are many who are experiencing some of what I am experiencing. There is a strength in just having someone stand with me, stand by me, be with me in this. I know that many can't solve my problems, but I draw strength knowing they're with me. You've had that experience. You've known that hope. You've gained that strength. Just knowing someone is with you, walking with you, companioning you on the journey. They stayed together to pray. So can we. We draw strength from this. There also is a strength that happens when we gather and we hear again the Word of God. And I remember what God has done. I remember what God promised. It renews me. It restores me. It gives me another reason to face Monday. I go on. So gathering in prayer is an important thing, certainly in this context, when the bread of life, the hope of Christ, the gift of the Spirit is given me in that gift of the sacrament. But also I gather in prayer privately. I keep talking to the Lord because there's strength in that presence. And then the second thing they did, those disciples when they were there, is they recognized that in this time, this in-between time, was a time to simplify. No, better yet, get to the core of what they really believed. They would discuss among them, didn't he say this? Wasn't he going to do this? And they began to get to the real value. Now, you and I in our lives have a lot of things we value, a lot of things we say are important to us. But when we sit down, is that where I spend my time? Is that where I'm really working hard to develop? Have I put any energy into those things I value? Sometimes, at a critical moment in my life, when I've lost many things, it causes me to simplify, to look back and say, what really are the things that matter in my life? I am always caught off guard thinking for a moment, because frequently in this parish I do a lot of ministry to people in hospice and also people in nursing homes. These are people who, like you and I, had many things, homes and places, and there they are in this one little room. All the possessions now either on a small nightstand or in a bureau. That's it. And it causes me to say, what about all those things I think I can't live without? Well, I surely will, and I surely can. I think what the disciples learned is what's really important. Preach the gospel. That's what they said. We can do this. The Lord is with us. We don't have to worry about the power around us. We have the power within us. So sometimes those moments, those in-between times, let them teach you of what's really important and let them remind you or maybe challenge you. Am I spending the time I should on what is important? Or am I wasting my time on things that are passing away? And then it seems the last thing is that I use these times as a moment of memory, a seed of new hope. I know that when you're in between, the new thing isn't fully there, fully in bloom. But think about all the things that we're beginning to plant now. We're putting seeds into the ground or plants in the ground, and we're going to trust that someday sun will appear, we'll have warmth, and they'll grow. But we know that the seed will have to die. And in the dying of that seed is the new life beginning. But I know the seed is there. I have to remember all the ways God has been with me in the past. All the way God has brought me to this moment. And in that memory, in all those other broken times, in between times, dying times, I experienced the Lord. I need to do this time of memory. So you and I are often found in between times for all of those reasons. So remember and hold on to what the disciples did, and they had found great joy and strength. They gathered in prayer. They remembered all the ways God had been with them. And then they simplified down to what was important. So do the same. Pray and simplify and remember. You'll know the joy of this Ascension Day.